What if I told you that one of the most iconic horror films ever made was a complete and total creative betrayal? We all know the story of Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, Jack Torrance's terrifying spiral into madness, those ghostly twins, the river of blood. But there's another story, one that was deliberately left on the cutting room floor, Stephen King's original abandoned script. Today, we're digging up the film that was never meant to be and exposing the almost tyrannical secrecy behind Kubrick's cinematic nightmare.
Wendy, baby, I think you hurt my head real bad. I'm dizzy. I need a doctor.
This is the story of two masters, two visions, and a bitter battle for the soul of a horror masterpiece. Before it was a film, The Shining was Stephen King's third novel, and maybe his most personal. Published in 1977, the book was born from King's own battle with alcoholism and his anxieties about being a father. He and his wife once found themselves as the only guests at the Stanley Hotel in Colorado during its off-season. That profound isolation and a horrifying nightmare he had about his own son being chased by a fire hose planted the seeds for the Overlook Hotel. The soul of King's novel is tragedy. Jack Torrance isn't a monster waiting to happen. He's a deeply flawed man who's genuinely trying to beat his demons. He's a recovering alcoholic who loves his family and sees the caretaker job as a final chance for redemption. The horror comes from watching the hotel's evil, supernatural power prey on his weaknesses, twisting a good man into a monster against his own will.
Fucking typical of you to create a problem like this when I finally have a chance to accomplish something, when I am really into my work. I could really write my own ticket if I went back to Boulder now, couldn't I?
The book's Wendy is a tough, independent woman, a far cry from her film counterpart. And the Overlook itself isn't some vague psychological threat. It's a living, breathing character, a supernatural force that wants to consume Danny for his power and tear the family apart. King's story is a hot, emotional inferno about the fight for a man's soul, ending in fire and a moment of tragic sacrifice. In his last moment of clarity, Jack urges his family to run before the hotel's unstable boiler explodes, destroying both him and the building. It's a story of love and loss. Kubrick, well, he was interested in something much, much colder. When Warner Bros. Gave the film a green light, they hired Stephen King to write the first draft. He was thrilled. His script was a faithful, direct translation of his novel, keeping the character arcs, the backstory, and the central theme of a tragic downfall.
Not by the hair on your chinny chin chin. Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in.
It also included one of the book's most memorable and terrifying creations, the living topiary animals. In the novel, hedges shaped like lions and rabbits come to life when you're not looking, acting as the hotel's silent, monstrous guardians. But Stanley Kubrick, a director famous for his meticulous and obsessive control, had other plans. In a move that basically defined the entire production, he reportedly tossed King's script aside without even reading it. He felt King's writing was too literal, too on the nose. Kubrick wanted ambiguity, a psychological thriller where the horror crawled out of the human mind, not from obvious ghosts. So he threw King's script in the trash. The topiary animals, a cornerstone of the book's horror, were cut because Kubrick worried the special effects of the day would look silly. He decided to invent a new symbol, one that would become just as iconic as the Overlook itself, the hedge maze. It was the first major blow in dismantling King's story to rebuild it in his own chilling image. To help create this new vision, Kubrick brought in novelist Diane Johnson. He'd considered adapting her book The Shadow Knows and was impressed that she taught a university course on Gothic literature. He thought she could bring a more psychological, academic chill to the story. Together, they spent 11 weeks overhauling everything. They didn't just change things, they inverted them. They made Jack Torrance a man who seemed unstable from the very first frame.
Has it ever occurred to you that I have agreed to look after the Overlook Hotel until May the 1st? Does it matter to you at all that the owners have placed their complete confidence and trust in me and that I have signed a letter of agreement, a contract?
King famously complained that the movie's Jack has no character arc. He's just crazy from the start. They turned Wendy from a strong, resilient woman into what King called a feeble and weak-minded character, purely to heighten the sense of dread. Kubrick dismissed the novel's climax, the boiler explosion, as a tired cliché. He demanded an ending that was more visual, more metaphorical. This led them to the ice-cold finale in the hedge maze, replacing King's fiery, redemptive ending with a frozen portrait of damnation. The story was no longer about a good man losing a battle with evil. It was about how short the path to madness is for a man already standing on the edge. The sheer audacity of this creative takeover is a testament to a director who would let nothing and no one stand in the way of his vision. If you find these descents into cinema's dark history as fascinating as we do, take a second to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We unearth stories like this every week, and you won't want to miss what we dig up next. Kubrick's obsession with control on set is the stuff of Hollywood legend. The production, meant to last a few months, ballooned to over a year. Scripts were always changing. Actors would get new pages with new dialogue moments before filming. It got so bad that Jack Nicholson reportedly just stopped reading the scripts, knowing they were going to change anyway. This drive for perfection created an almost torturous environment. Shelley Duvall's experience is infamous. Kubrick reportedly isolated her and pushed her to the brink to get the authentically terrified performance he wanted. The legendary scene where a bat-wielding Wendy backs away from Jack up the stairs was shot a world record 127 times.
Wendy, give me the bat. Give me the bat. Ah, God damn!
The secrecy was absolute. Kubrick controlled everything, even allowing his 17-year-old daughter to shoot a behind-the-scenes documentary because he knew he could trust her with the footage. And that documentary itself is a masterclass in controlled perception, showing only what Kubrick wanted the world to see. This obsession lasted until the very end. For the film's initial, very brief theatrical run, there was a different ending. After Jack freezes to death, a scene in a hospital shows Wendy and Danny recovering. The hotel manager, Ullman, visits them, tells them the police found nothing strange at the hotel, and then cryptically tosses Danny a yellow tennis ball, the same ball that had mysteriously rolled up to him in the Overlook's hall. Critics were confused. Within a week of the movie's release, Kubrick ordered projectionists to physically cut the scene from every single print, and the footage was presumably destroyed forever, cementing the film's haunting ambiguity. Unsurprisingly, Stephen King has never been shy about his hatred for Kubrick's film. He famously called it a big, beautiful Cadillac with no engine inside, admitting its style but blasting its lack of heart. He felt the film completely missed the entire point of his novel, the tragedy of a family's love being destroyed by addiction and a very real supernatural evil. For King, Kubrick's Jack was just Jack Nicholson playing crazy, not a character actually transforming. He was so unhappy that in 1997, he wrote and produced his own TV miniseries, shot at the actual Stanley Hotel. This version was obsessively faithful to his book, complete with the roque mallet, the living topiaries, and the boiler room explosion. But for all its faithfulness, the miniseries is now mostly a horror trivia answer, lacking any of the raw cultural power of Kubrick's masterpiece. The ultimate irony is that the very things King despised about the film, its coldness, its sterile cruelty, its maddening ambiguity, are precisely why it's haunted audiences for decades. Kubrick didn't just adapt a book.
I love you more than anything else in the whole world. I would never do anything to hurt you. Never. You know that, don't you?
He used its frame to build a puzzle box, a beautiful, terrifying piece of art that invites endless debate. He stripped out the clear lines between good and evil and left us with something far more unsettling, a perfect, beautiful, and utterly terrifying question mark. In the end, we're left with two shinings. One is a tragic, emotional novel about the battle for a man's soul, a story of fire and redemption. The other is a cold, clinical film about the collapse of a man's psyche, a story of ice and damnation. Kubrick's vision required him to betray King's creation. He tore down a story about a haunted hotel and instead built a film that feels like it's haunting us. So, who was right? Is the real story the one the author wrote, or the one the filmmaker burned into celluloid? And which Shining truly haunts you more? The one we got, or the one that was left for dead? Let us know in the comments below. And for more great content like this, smash that like button and subscribe to Watch Riot for your backstage pass to the wildest true stories in movies.